God bless you. Happy, lucky, and successful journey.
Have you ever watched someone's entire life turn out to be nothing more than a carefully calculated, cold-blooded performance? What if I told you that the greatest, most dramatic love story we have ever seen on 90 Day Fiancé was actually the biggest, most elaborate scam in reality television history? We all watched Jenny sacrifice everything. We watched her give up her home, her family, her entire life savings, packing up and moving across the world to India, truly believing she had finally found her absolute soulmate in Sumit. But a massive, shocking explosion of leaked information has just blown the lid off of this entire relationship. Playing with Jenny's life for a US visa, that is Sumit's ultimate ulterior motive, fully exposed today. We have to talk about the leaked emails, the desperate pleas to the embassy, and the horrifying realization that Jenny was never the end goal. She was just the ticket out. Before we dive deep into this massive rabbit hole and connect the dots that have been hidden in plain sight for years, I need you to do me a huge favor. If you love exposing the truth behind reality TV, hit that like button right now, smash the subscribe button, and please ring that notification bell. It really helps the channel get these truth bombs out there, and trust me, you are not going to want to miss a single second of the evidence we are uncovering today. This all started when I was scrolling late last night. I got this video from TikTok, and then I started seeing similar deep dives and rumblings on Instagram and other social platform sources. At first, I thought it was just another wild fan rumor, but as I started looking into these exclusive theories, the pieces fit together too perfectly. To protect my channel's credibility, I want to frame this as an incredible theory based on recent online leaks. But once you hear the details, you are going to see that this feels exactly like breaking news. This recent update completely shatters the illusion of the sweet, conflicted Indian man torn between his traditional family and his American true love. We need to talk about what internet sleuths are currently calling the scaffold theory. If you think about what a scaffold is in construction, it is a temporary structure. It is built on the outside of a building, used purely to support the workers and materials while the real, permanent structure is being created. Once the actual building is finished and secure, the scaffold is torn down and thrown away because it has served its purpose. In this dark, twisted scenario, Jenny is the scaffold. The entire relationship, the dramatic fights with his parents, the public tears, the moving back and forth, marrying an older American woman, it was all just a scaffold. It was a long-term, carefully architected structure built solely to secure a U.S. visa so Sumit could escape an insurmountable mountain of secret debt he had accumulated in India. Let that sink in for a moment. Every time he held her hand and promised her forever, he was just laying another brick in his escape plan. When he was crying on camera, looking like a man broken by the impossible choice between his mother and his wife, he wasn't crying over love. He was crying over the stress of his master plan taking too long. This theory connects every single bizarre, unexplainable delay in their relationship timeline. Think back to season 2. Really think about it. Remember why Sumit delayed the wedding over and over again? The show presented this narrative that he was absolutely terrified of his mother's wrath. We watched the dramatic interventions, the screaming matches, the threats of being disowned. We all felt terrible for him, thinking he was just a victim of strict cultural expectations. But let us look at some revisionist history here, through the lens of these new leaks. He wasn't scared of his mother, not at all. He was waiting for his financial trap to close. The timing of the marriage had nothing to do with getting his parents' blessing. It had everything to do with the specific legal timelines required to file the paperwork, ensuring that once the ring was on her finger, the mechanism to get him out of the country and away from his financial ruin was already perfectly in motion. The parental drama was the ultimate smokescreen. It bought him time. It made Jenny sympathetic. It made the viewers root for him, completely blinding everyone to the fact that he was meticulously managing a timeline for immigration, not a timeline for love. And if you doubt this, if you think this is just a wild stretch of the imagination, then we need to talk about the sensory details of these latest leaks. The video I saw on TikTok showcased screenshots of an alleged email that changed everything. Look closely at the red highlighted sections of this leaked email circulating in these online forums. You can practically feel the panic in his words as he begs the embassy to expedite his visa. The language used in these alleged messages isn't the language of a man eager to start a romantic new life with his beautiful bride. It is the frantic, sweaty desperation of a man who feels the walls closing in. He is pleading. He is bargaining. He is using every excuse in the book to try and get that paperwork pushed to the front of the line. The red highlights expose exactly what he was really focused on. Not Jenny's comfort, not building a home, but getting that stamp of approval to cross the border before whatever financial disaster he was running from finally caught up to him. We need to start branding this entire ordeal exactly for what it appears to be. This is textbook spousal visa fraud. That is the key terminology we have to use moving forward. Spousal visa. Fraud is a serious, calculated crime that preys on the most vulnerable emotions of a human being. It requires looking a woman in the eyes, a woman who has given up her twilight years for you, and lying to her soul every single day. Sumit played the long game. He knew that marrying an older American would raise red flags with immigration. So what did he do? He created a multi-year, highly televised narrative of struggle and devotion. What better way to prove your relationship is real to an immigration officer than pointing to hundreds of hours of reality TV footage where you literally fought your own family for the right to marry this woman? It is a masterclass in manipulation. He used the cameras, he used the producers, and most importantly, he used Jenny's desperate desire to be loved to manufacture an airtight case for his visa application. Every excuse, every stolen passport, every hidden first marriage, it all traces back to this singular, ultimate, ulterior motive. He couldn't go to America right away because he had to build the scaffold. He had to make the struggle look so real, so painful, that no immigration official could ever look at their file and claim it was a marriage of convenience. He made it the most inconvenient marriage in the world on purpose. It is dark. It is brilliant in the most devious way possible, and it is completely devastating for Jenny. She was sitting there, defending him to her daughters, defending him to the world, looking like a fool, while he was secretly sweating over embassy emails and timing his financial escape route. The implications of this are staggering. If this TikTok and Instagram-sourced theory holds true, it means that every single romantic confessional was a calculated performance. When he was smiling at Jenny, he was looking right through her, seeing a green card, seeing a plane ticket, seeing a clean slate away from his debts. And the scariest part is how well it worked. He had millions of people fooled. He had Jenny utterly convinced that she was the prize, when in reality, she was just the vehicle. This is why we have to examine these exclusive theories, because reality TV editors are trying to sell you a fairy tale, or at least a tragic romance. But the internet always finds the truth. The internet finds the red highlighted emails. The internet connects the delayed wedding in season 2 not to a crying mother, but to a calculated financial and legal trap. And I am telling you right now, this is only the tip of the iceberg. The deeper we dig into this spousal visa fraud narrative, the darker it gets. We are just scratching the surface of the lengths he went to in order to keep this scaffold from collapsing before the visa was secured. Make sure your notifications are on, because next week, I'm dropping what his immigration lawyer actually told him behind closed doors. You are not going to believe the legal advice he was allegedly given, and how it completely proves that he was pulling the strings from day one. But for now, we have to process the fact that Jenny's life, her heart, and her future were nothing but playing chips in a high-stakes game for a U.S. visa. Let us peel back another layer of this incredibly dark onion and really examine the origin story of this entire relationship. Because when you look at it through the lens of the scaffold theory, the beginning of their romance transforms from a quirky online meeting into a calculated, predatory expedition. We have to go all the way back to the infamous Michael Jones persona. For years, the narrative we were sold on 90 Day Fiancé was that Sumit was just an insecure young guy working in a call center, catfishing people for fun or out of boredom. And he just happened to stumble upon Jenny. We thought it was a strange but ultimately harmless origin to their love story. He came clean, she forgave him, and love conquered all, right? Wrong. The exclusive theories circulating on Instagram right now suggest something far more sinister. He was not just a bored call center worker playing games on the internet. He was prospecting. He was financially desperate, drowning in obligations, and he was casting a wide net looking for a very specific type of target. He needed someone vulnerable. He needed someone trusting. And most importantly, he needed someone with American citizenship and access to U.S. currency. Jenny fit the profile perfectly. She was an older woman, perhaps feeling a little lonely, easily flattered by the attention of a younger, handsome man who was showering her with relentless affection. The Michael Jones identity wasn't just a catfish, it was the bait. And once Jenny took the hook, Sumit began constructing the very foundation of the scaffold. He realized very early on that to pull off a long-term spousal visa fraud of this magnitude, he couldn't just ask her for money or a green card right away. He had to play the ultimate long game. He had to make her believe that their connection was cosmic, destined, and worth fighting against the entire world for. Think about the psychological manipulation required to keep a woman strung along for a decade, 10 years. He systematically broke down her boundaries. Every time Jenny packed her bags, sold her belongings, and flew to India, she was burning a bridge back to her safety net in the United States. And that was entirely by design. A scaffold only works if it is completely attached to the building, right? Sumit needed Jenny completely dependent on him in India, so she couldn't easily walk away when things got difficult. He isolated her in a foreign country, where she didn't speak the language, where she didn't understand the legal system, and where she had absolutely no one to rely on except for him. He controlled her environment, he controlled her access to information, and he controlled the narrative. And let us talk about the financial drain, because this is where the TikTok leaks really start to expose the cold, hard reality of his ulterior motive. Jenny gave up her early Social Security. She depleted her entire life savings to fund their life in India, while he repeatedly made excuses about why he couldn't work or why his family was taking his money. Viewers watched in horror as she slept in freezing apartments, dealt with sickness, and constantly worried about her dwindling bank account. But while Jenny was stressing over pennies, Sumit was executing a financial drain that was perfectly calculated. He was using her American dollars to keep himself afloat, while secretly managing the massive debt from his hidden life. We absolutely must address the secret first marriage. The show framed this as the ultimate betrayal, a shocking twist where Sumit was forced into an arranged marriage by his overbearing parents while he was secretly pining for Jenny. But the internet sleuths have ripped this storyline to shreds. The new theory suggests that his first marriage was not some tragic burden he was forced to bear. It was another desperate financial maneuver. When that marriage fell apart, he was hit with a devastating divorce settlement. We are talking about tens of thousands of dollars, a massive sum of money in India, that he was legally obligated to pay his ex-wife's family. Where do you think the money to pay off that debt was going to come from? This is where the parents, Sadhna and Anil, come into play. We all loved to hate Sadhna. We watched her scream, cry, and threaten suicide if Sumit married an older white woman. But what if the parents were, on some level, aware of the endgame? What if the dramatic, televised family warfare was just another layer of the smokescreen. Some of the most mind-blowing rumors I have found deep in these online forums suggest that the family's outrage was entirely amplified for the cameras to justify why Sumit and Jenny couldn't just live peacefully in India. If the parents are destroying their peace, it creates the perfect, undeniable excuse for why Sumit must be granted a U.S. visa. He can tell the embassy, "Look at my life here. My family is threatening us. We are not safe. I have to go to America to protect my wife." It is brilliant. It is a manufactured asylum claim wrapped up in a reality TV bow. The parents get their son's massive divorce debt paid off by American TV money, and Sumit gets his ticket to the United States. Let us look at his behavior whenever Jenny's daughters, especially Christina, came to India. Notice how Sumit's demeanor completely shifted. He played the role of the submissive, apologetic, dedicated partner flawlessly. Why? Because Christina was a threat to the scaffold. She was the one person who could see through the manipulation and pull Jenny out of the illusion. Sumit knew he had to keep Jenny's family pacified. He couldn't afford to have her daughters hire a lawyer, look into his background, or forcefully bring their mother home. So he smiled. He made promises he had absolutely no intention of keeping, and he played the victim of his own culture. He weaponized his own Indian heritage, using it as an endless excuse for his lies, his delays, and his secrecy, knowing that Jenny and her American family would try their best to be respectful and understanding of cultural differences. This is not just a story about a man who made some bad choices because he was afraid of his mom. This is the anatomy of a scam. Every time Jenny cried out of frustration, asking him why they couldn't just get married, he was doing the mental math on his visa timeline. He knew that if they got married too soon, before the narrative of their epic struggle was firmly documented on international television, immigration officials might flag the massive age gap and the suspicious circumstances. He needed seasons of footage. He needed a documented history of extreme hardship. He essentially used the TLC camera crew as his own personal immigration evidence-gathering team. And the panic in those leaked emails I mentioned earlier, the ones with the red highlights begging the embassy, that panic didn't come from a fear of losing Jenny. That panic spiked because his creditors in India were losing patience. The reality TV money was drying up. The divorce settlement was hanging over his head, and the facade was starting to crack. He needed out. He needed the United States economy. He needed the ability to work in America, earn American dollars, and disappear from the financial mess he had created in his home country. Jenny was never his forever home. Jenny was just the key to unlock the door at the border. If you watch his body language in those later seasons, the mask begins to slip. Once they finally tied the knot, the dynamic instantly changed. The loving, doting Michael Jones completely evaporated. Suddenly, he was talking about wanting to go back to work, wanting to be out of the house, showing less and less interest in the romantic fantasy he had sold her for a decade. Why? Because the scaffold had served its purpose. The structure was built. The marriage certificate was signed. The visa application was officially in motion. He didn't need to put on the exhaustive performance 24 hours a day anymore. He had secured his asset. The sheer cruelty of spousal visa fraud is that it requires the perpetrator to hijack someone else's reality. Jenny woke up every single day for 10 years, believing she was the protagonist in a beautiful, star-crossed romance. She fought for him. She defended his honor against relentless online trolling. She stood by him when he was exposed as a liar and an adulterer. And her reward for that unwavering loyalty was to be secretly reduced to a piece of paperwork, a stepping stone, a sponsor. We are watching a psychological thriller disguised as reality television. And as the internet continues to rip the lid off of this, more and more puzzle pieces from the past are falling perfectly into place. Everything that never made sense about Sumit's decisions, the stolen passports, the disappearing acts, the endless excuses, it all makes perfect, terrifying sense when you apply the scaffold theory. He was a man managing a highly volatile, high-stakes exit strategy. And Jenny was just along for the ride, completely blind to the fact that she was driving the getaway car. As we enter the final and most chilling phase of this entire investigation, we have to ask ourselves the most terrifying question of all. What happens to a scaffold once the building is finally complete? The answer is brutally simple. It gets torn down. It gets discarded. It is left behind in the dirt because it has absolutely zero value to the architect once the main structure is standing on its own. And that, my friends, is exactly what the internet sleuths and these exclusive theories are warning us is about to happen to Jenny. The recent update that has been circulating across TikTok, Instagram, and other social platform sources paints a devastating picture of the end game. To protect my channel's credibility, I will continue to present this as a highly compelling theory based on digital footprints and leaked whispers. But the puzzle pieces are locking together with such terrifying precision that it feels like we are watching a slow-motion car crash disguised as real news. Let us fast forward to the present day and look at the most recent updates surrounding their situation. The marriage certificate is signed. The endless, exhausting battles with his parents have seemingly faded into the background. The ultimate narrative of their hard-fought victory has been permanently immortalized on reality television. Sumit got exactly what he needed: a mountain of irrefutable, highly publicized evidence to present to the United States immigration authorities. He has essentially crowdsourced his alibi for spousal visa fraud. But now that the heavy lifting is done, now that the trap has been successfully sprung, his entire demeanor has shifted in ways that are deeply unsettling. Fans online have been dissecting their recent social media posts, their latest appearances, and the subtle cues in their body language, and the consensus is alarming. The passionate, desperate man who was willing to fight his own mother for the love of his life is gone. In his place is a man who looks incredibly impatient, emotionally detached, and entirely focused on the next logistical step. The warmth has evaporated. When you watch them together now, Jenny is still clinging to the fairy tale, desperately trying to project the image of a blissfully happy married couple living their best life in India. But Sumit is already looking past her. He is looking at the horizon. He is looking at the embassy. He is looking at that US visa. Because the reality is, staying in India was never the plan. Living happily ever after in a modest apartment on her depleted savings was never the goal. The goal was extraction. The goal was moving to the United States, securing the legal right to work, generating American income, and finally extinguishing the massive, secret debts that have been hunting him since his first disastrous marriage. Jenny was the sponsor, the bankroll, and the character witness all rolled into one, but her utility is rapidly approaching its expiration date. This brings me to the absolute bombshell that I teased at the very beginning of this deep dive. I promised you I would reveal what his immigration lawyer allegedly told him behind closed doors, and I am telling you, this is the piece of evidence that turns this entire saga into a textbook criminal mastermind plot. According to an anonymous leak that surfaced on a prominent reality TV gossip forum, a leak that was then heavily analyzed in the TikTok videos that sent me down this rabbit hole, there was a private consultation regarding his immigration status. In this alleged correspondence, Sumit was not asking about the best neighborhoods to live in with Jenny. He was not asking about how to integrate his Indian culture into an American lifestyle. He was allegedly asking highly specific, deeply suspicious questions about the exact legal timelines required to maintain his legal status in the event of a divorce. Let that sink in and freeze your blood for a second. The ink on the marriage certificate was barely dry. The ink on the visa paperwork was still being processed, and he was allegedly already mapping out the legal parameters of his exit strategy. According to these explosive rumors, he wanted to know exactly how long he had to remain legally married to his American sponsor once he crossed the border, before he could file for a dissolution of marriage without jeopardizing his green card. The lawyer allegedly informed him of the standard conditional residency rules, explaining the 2-year mark and the stringent requirements needed to prove the marriage was entered into in good faith if a divorce occurred before the conditions were removed. When you apply the scaffold theory to this leaked legal advice, everything crystallizes. This is why the televised documentation of their relationship was so vital to his plan. If he leaves her shortly after arriving in the United States, immigration authorities will immediately suspect spousal visa fraud. They will launch an investigation. But Sumit is already 10 steps ahead. He knows that if he is investigated, he can just point to 10 years of television footage. He can point to the tears, the screaming matches with Sadhna, the stolen passports, and the dramatic airport reunions. He has literally produced a decade-long television series to serve as his defense exhibit A. He can walk into an immigration office and say, "Look at how hard I fought for this woman. Look at what I sacrificed in my home country. We tried. We really did. But the cultural differences in America were just too much for us to overcome." It is an airtight, impenetrable defense, and he built it using Jenny's genuine emotions as the bricks and mortar. Think about the sheer cruelty of this recent update. Jenny is currently sitting in India, believing that the hardest days are behind them. She believes that because he finally put a ring on her finger, she has won the ultimate prize. She has absolutely no idea that she is standing on a trap door. She doesn't realize that the second that U.S. visa is stamped into his passport, the countdown clock on their marriage begins ticking loudly in his head. The moment they land on American soil, the final phase of the extraction protocol begins. He will likely use her remaining resources to get settled. He will secure a job. He will start funneling American dollars back to India to clear his name and his debts. And then, right around the time that legal window opens up, the final, fatal argument will occur. He will start picking fights. He will claim he is homesick but cannot go back. He will say that she has changed since they moved to America. He will manufacture the exact environment needed to justify a divorce, leaving Jenny entirely devastated, financially ruined, and completely alone in her twilight years, while he walks away with the ultimate prize, a fresh start in the United States, free of debt, and legally protected by the very system he manipulated. It is not just a scam. It is an emotional assassination. It is the complete and total systematic destruction of a woman's life, her finances, and her reality, all for a piece of paper. When we zoom out and look at the totality of this situation, it is impossible to see it as anything other than playing with a human life. We have watched a man weaponize love, weaponize his culture, and weaponize his own family to execute a flawless, long-term fraud. This wasn't a crime of passion or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a decade of deliberate, daily choices to look a woman in the eyes and lie to her soul. It is a terrifying testament to how far someone will go when they are desperate, and how easily a trusting heart can be turned into a stepping stone. Jenny gave him everything. She gave him her youth, her money, her dignity, and her unconditional loyalty. And in return, he gave her a starring role in his own personal heist movie. As this story continues to develop, and as more of these alleged emails, text, and legal consultations inevitably leak to the surface, the illusion is going to completely shatter. The reality television editors can no longer hide the truth behind quirky music and dramatic commercial breaks. The internet has spoken, the dots have been connected, and the ultimate ulterior motive has been exposed for the entire world to see. This brings us to the end of one of the darkest deep dives we have ever done on this channel. But I know this story is far from over. I will be monitoring every single update, every single TikTok leak, and every piece of exclusive information that hits the internet regarding Sumit's visa status. You guys know I will bring you the absolute uncut truth the second it drops. If your mind is as blown as mine is by this scaffold theory, I need you to do me a massive favor right now. Please hit that like button. It helps push this video out to other fans who need to know the truth. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel with the notification bell turned all the way on so you never miss an emergency update. And I want to hear from every single one of you down in the comments right now. Do you believe the scaffold theory? Do you think Sumit was plotting this spousal visa fraud from the very first day he logged in as Michael Jones? Or do you still think there is a shred of real love left in this relationship? Drop your theories, your thoughts, and your outrage in the comments section below. And I will see you all in the next video as we continue to expose the absolute truth behind the cameras.